Jesus.
24.
Anyway, please welcome to the stage the amazing Gordon Bellamy, who's going to moderate this next panel.
Thank you, Tommy. And thank you for having us. And hello at home on twitch.tv. Oh, yeah, we're streaming. Say hello.
Howdy.
Oh. All right, so we have a fantastic panel of colleagues from USC Games, and I'll just let's go right here. This is left to right. Start with you, Jesse.
Okay, sure
Who
thing.
are you?
Hi, everybody. My name is Jesse Vigil. I am a filmmaker, a writer, a producer, I'm a game designer, a serial entrepreneur. I run a company called Psychic Bunny, and I now teach at USC also. I teach production and entrepreneurship and basically a bunch of other things as they appear. I do a lot of like location-based entertainment, alternate reality games, like next gen, like Forefront, weird. If it's weird, that's what I'm doing.
And you, Scott?
Hi, my name is Scott Easley. I'm the senior lecturer at the Viterbi School of Engineering, and I've been in the business about 20 years, and I've been full-time faculty for about 12 at USC. I've worked at Electronic Arts, I've worked at THQ. I was one of the first 8 people to help form Oddworld Inhabitants, for those of you that remember that. And I've been an animator in my previous life. And I now have an interest in the engineering as well as the creative process. And that hybrid's becoming more and more necessary as we go forward. And I've been teaching the game students in animation as well as the game students in engineering. So a lot of fun there.
Hey, I'm Archie. I'm a professor now at USC for 4 years now. I guide the MFA students on their thesis projects, and also I've started a number of startups in Los Angeles and currently working with Google on a new project in augmented reality.
Cool. Well, you're all very entrepreneurial, like a lot of our audience and a lot of our students. So maybe we can start to frame what the next generation developer is like and what sort of students you're putting out into the world. Because it's probably a little different than people might expect, you know, what it is to maybe to know Unity, like to know the tools and techniques, but maybe more about like the mindset and the priorities of students. And I'll start with you, Jesse.
Okay, sure. So I actually teach a class at USC. It's like the first of its kind. We call it Finish and Polish. The requirements for the class are that you have to bring something into the class that you made in another class. And then we spend 15 weeks teaching you how to refine it, make it public facing, get it ready if it's for crowdfunding, or get it ready for like a publisher pitch, or get it ready to do like an independent sort of release on your own. I've been doing that like sort of in a rogue capacity, and then it became an official listed class for about 4 years now. And I think the thing that I have started noticing is that the game students and the people who are sort of coming into the industry are aware that there is sort of a sea change and that there's a paradigm shift, and how a lot of us got into this industry is not the way that they can expect to get into this industry, and they are casting about maybe, but as a result of which they've also gotten kind of creative, and they've identified things like access points in venues that we didn't really even like fully sort of understand. And we go like in the class, I think we're like 7 for 10 in terms of like successful Kickstarters at this point. And some of them like fund like 600-700% sometimes, so they understand some things.
Maybe talk a little bit about like what sort of things they're creating, because people don't know if they're making like a elephant or a bread box, or
right? Okay,
a mobile game or a board game.
Yeah, all kinds of things, right? Like so, yes, like definitely like one of the things that like one of the most successful projects that I've seen was a board game about being parent ducks, just trying to keep your ducklings alive as you make like a difficult sort of migration.
Right.
It is a game about. Like, it is actually, as a parent myself, I cannot play the game because it is about, like, loss and jeopardy and, like, some, like, pretty strong sort of emotions. So, like, on one side there's that, and on the other side, like, we've had games that, like, did, like, a Steam release that are these cool couch co-op, Old West sort of, like, Looney Tunes cartoon, sort of, like, competitive sort of game called Gold Rushers. It runs the gamut. I think it's less about any one sort of like genre or platform, and I think it has a lot more to do with just like passion.
I want to just ask a question a little deeper in, because you talked about polishing, but you also talked about crowdfunding, which to me means there's like making a game and making a polished product, but then communicating it out to the public could be a whole different set of skills, like a whole different set of polishing to be like you're going to interface with people and create money and expectations outside of your own.
Which I think is about figuring out what is the core thing about whatever it is that you made that somebody is going to understand and see the potential in, and not get distracted by all the other things. So we sort of spend some time on this in part because they show up with this thing and they've got, oh, I want this feature over here, I want this feature over here, and inevitably, like some student says, well, I want it to be like just like Dark Souls, and you're like, oh God, there's like 3 of you. You can't do that at that same sort of scale. But what is it about that that excites you? What is that sort of like the core gem, more or less? And then we're going to shave all of those other sort of things off so that like nobody gets like Google eyes when you're talking to them. But also, that's like the most important part of it, and focus on that. And that's the thing that when you're talking about how to talk about your work and how to talk about yourself, that has become like, I think the thing that I'm really focused on.
That actually sort of brings me to Scott, because if I did want to make Dark Souls with 3 of my friends, I'd probably need some machine learning.
What an excellent segue. I do want to kind of piggyback off of something Jesse said. The sea of change, as you mentioned earlier, that's happening not just in the technological realm, but also in the social realm. That you have this constant upgrading of different hardwares. What can we do with it? What new experiences can we make with this? And yet this social strata and the new generations coming in with their stories, their insights, their ways of talking with each other, which is not the way I grew up with. You know, I had the arcade you'd physically go to, snap your quarter down, I'm next. You have a whole new a group of people that talk in a different way, that have different ways of communicating. That's going to manifest itself along with this hardware. So what we're also in the position of doing is kind of seeing the students tell us what's next. And that's an incredible position to be in. Machine learning is manifest from that, which is that some of the things that fascinate me in particular is the way that general adversarial networks or machine learning can get into games. I just read a syllabus today that is a proposal by one of the professors at USC, which is machine learning for games. Now, let me try and break this down in a way that you can see my enthusiasm for this. One of the projects that I was in charge of over the summer was getting a group of students that would sit and take a simple tower defense game. And they would have the program follow all of the characters that were sent out, the monsters, the creeps, the things you had to best before you got to the end of the trail. You then tracked how the player played it with the different limited types of towers they could build en route. The algorithm was then given the assignment to try and kill these closer to the end, meaning excitement. And it also quantified excitement in the computer way that it can, which is if the player continually had less money, it inferred a panic paying, building, repairing, and that meant more excitement. So what was happening was we were getting machine learning to look at waves of these creeps in a tower defense game and coming back with a way to optimize that according to these 2 simple rubrics. You've also got machine learning that can absorb in a very abstract way the way that people design levels for a simple platformer, and can take not just a cutting and a pasting of different things, the tower, the pipe, the platform, but construct levels in a very abstract way so that it looks like a human designed them, but they are original and new. So I find that stuff just mind-boggling.
I'm super curious, just when you talk about optimizing enjoyment, right? Do you model it like a film? Like films have like a natural meter and pace.
Yes.
That is what you're trying to teach, like those sorts of experiences, but interactive ones.
Wow, great question. I had the chance to go get my master's in screenwriting at USC, and so all of this stuff that you're talking about, this whole the hero with 1,000 faces and all that stuff, how do you take that and put that into a game so that the player feels that experience, that death and catharsis, that winning, not just the besting of a big boss, but an actual journey through the course of the game? There is another project on the horizon to kind of gauge the excitement level of how someone could feel elated or down according to something as simple as obstacles in the path or as this construction of unique waves through a tower defense. Does that then translate into the emotional takeaway of these things similar to the journey of what someone feels in a film? I don't know the answer, but I'm fascinated with the study.
Yeah, well, it's funny because so people watch films in different ways now. Like we can watch on our phone or Netflix or what have you.
Right.
We used to always go to theaters, and games sort of the same way. We used to come to the arcade back in the day, and then games came home, and then we got internet. I could play you while you were home, I was home, And now we're moving into new realms, right? We're moving into VR and AR, where like worlds come to us wherever we may be. And that brings me to you, Archie. I'm super curious about the affordances of young people who are coming up with new ways that they're even experiencing play.
Right. I as someone that kind of, initially I went to school for hand-drawn animation, and that's the farthest things from games that there could be. But I think one of the core things is learning how to learn, and that's one of the most important things as a college student you should understand is technology is ever changing, right? What could be VR is the hot thing today, could be something completely different tomorrow. And the idea that knowing that technology is changing, and it's someone that's been in technology for almost like the past 15, 20 years, seeing how rapidly it's changing is super interesting. And again, with the augmented reality up in the forefront, and then moreover is kind of photorealism. And that's a thing that's someone that has worked in the VFX industry to see render times go down to 0. And there's a convergence of games and films that I think is being overlooked, and a future for even our fellow graduates as I think there's a convergence back from games into cinema, and those sort of things, and how to tell compelling experiences with those tools at hand.
Could you maybe take me like an example? Because I've tried AR, right? A lot of people have tried it, but maybe you're seeing things which are maybe another layer beyond as far as experiences that are happening in AR. Sort of take us a little forward.
Yeah, I think AR, in terms of that, there's generative experiences. So AR is, think of a world where we have AR in front of you at all times, right? Imagine one day we are all wearing glasses and we are seeing a generative experiences. But that generative experience has to be custom tailored to wherever you go. If you're on the street corner, if you're at your home, if you're at the school, and there needs to be an understanding of your environment, and then also how to custom tailor that experience to wherever you go. Most time I see right now in AR is very singular experiences based around one point. But as AR becomes more ubiquitous, I think we have to start thinking about what the grander vision of AR is, and having AR as every part of our lives. Just as much as we go to the doctor's office and everyone's staring at their phone, one day we'll have AR overlaid into our real world, and it just becomes a normal part of it.
I have a spicy take.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
in, Jeff.
Oh God, that future sounds terrifying to me. No, I absolutely do not want that.
I do.
I think some people do. I think in general, it's something that the games industry is sort of going to have to struggle with reckon with at some point is our weird sibling complex with movies. So you're talking about the convergence with movies and all these things, and us trying to be movies. Oh gosh, can we please stop trying to be movies, because movies are movies. And we do something completely different, and we offer a different kind of experience.
But I think movies are realizing that what games can offer, in terms of technology.
Oh, yeah.
It's like they're coming around to us, not we're
Bandersnatch.
coming around to them.
Yeah.
I have too many spicy takes to get to Bandersnatch. But in general, I think technology is great. I worry about a world where we think that the point of games is increasingly to just come up with different ways to put different screens in front of our eyeballs. Right. And to make our eyeballs into screens or other things. And I think there's just we have become very obsessed with screens and tech as a starting point. I see this with students all the time because they see these things, and whatever the buzzword is, blockchain, AR, VR, XR, high-speed renders, all these sorts of things, and they say that as the starting point. I want to do something with blockchain, as opposed to I want to do something that has this core experience at the part of it. I want to make somebody feel this way. I want this thing to happen, and then look at the tools that are available and say which are the tools that are sort of available. But one of the things that we see a lot, I think, with students in particular, but is manifest in terms of some of the insecurities of the rest of our industry, is this idea that we have to grab a tool and take advantage of whatever that tool is and then shove an experience into it instead of the other way around.
So that feels like one of the greatest films of all time, The Karate Kid, where you must take them back. How do you build them up? Okay. How do you? So these students, they come and they have a worldview, they have an end goal, and it sounds like you need to actually deconstruct that.
Right.
And that's part of what game education is.
Right. A little
How
bit,
do you do that?
So, I think I'm going to respond with another great '80s film, and say that to a degree, you must unlearn what you have learned.
Yes.
First of all, and sort of say hey. School, we pick up a bunch of tools, and we pick up a bunch of techniques, and we become very obsessed with like deploying those. It's sort of the first opportunity. And
Yeah.
I think that there's the saying that when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And when you're in school, all of a sudden you pick up like a bunch of hammers and you're super excited to start using your hammers everywhere. And instead to start being like, is this really the tool for the job?
There's a lot of the things that I remember us sort of questioning the students is they would do just that with sort of, they'd grab a bit of technology or they'd try to sort of legitimize their offer of a game with all these buzzwords. They would, I felt like we could see that they were trying to say, isn't this good? And what I've seen Jesse be very good at is say, what is important about this to you? And there's actually this process where this stuff has to fall away, and they've got to sort of look at the platform they've made and go, how much of this is me? Why do I want to have a year-long thesis project based on a bit of technology versus something that really resonates within me as a story? And we go through all of that, and at the very end, we get these amazing bits of projects and personal stories that come through the blood, sweat, and tears of shucking off all that stuff that they think they need.
And and not to rag on tech too much, because Archie, all of the stuff that like I like of yours like uses tech in a way, but it's all like art and it's all like super cool.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, a lot of my experiences as a game developer has been about telling my story. But I thought games was about microtransactions. No, either way.
I knew I was doing it wrong.
I think, again, who you are as a person really matters, and your experiences needs to be told through the things that you're making, because that's what's going to shine and resonate the most, I think. And telling that to students and getting them to understand is one of the core kind of fundamentals of where we are going as well. And that's...
Well, that's sort of a question I imagine people at home or maybe in the crowd. So you're putting students out in the world, and what I'm hearing is, strip away what you see on the resume about I know C++ or Unity or microtransactions. I've made them myself, right? What then are you putting out in the world? What are they capable of through this learning to learn, right? That feels good to me. But what does that mean to companies when you're putting students out there? Yeah. What have they learned to learn?
I think it's having a self-starter, and I think I wouldn't even be here today if it wasn't for I need to do something. No one really is going to do it for me. I have to do it for myself. And that's something that I think students need to learn as well. If there's, especially in their career, starting off in their career, they expect, oh yeah, there's someone that's going to do X, Y, and Z for me. And in the end of the day, no one's going to do it better than yourself, because you're the guiding vision that should be there. And even if you work with other people, you need to show them how you would do it, and they would get a better understanding. Because if not, then without your kind of soul that you put into it, other people won't even be interested.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm going to put this right to you, Scott, because once again, I love machine learning, and so I would think the machine did it, right? Like, what are these students coming through, right? Who are these, I guess, sort of, I don't know, almost like wizards of this new craft?
Right.
How do you tell one apart when they all say machine learning on their resume?
Machine learning is but a tool.
Yeah, okay.
And it's no more than a new new brush in the paint box. The experience itself, trying to carefully choose the words, not to say that you have to commodify or gamify personal experiences. You have to burn brightly about what it is you're telling. And machine learning to me is fascinating for technical reasons, and also for the ability for an algorithm to have agency more within an experience than it previously has had. There is some talk about having a VR experience that will write your story on the fly, depending upon the choices you make or what you do. The problem is you get into research, and I think that because we have such a different crop of experiences and stories that are coming down the pipe and of a new generation, that I'm loath to say machine learning is this. It's a wonderful way to get this odd echo back from the technology.
Sure.
But we have to give it a whole stomach of human-authored information from which it can draw its conclusions that we tell it to. And out of that, it can take tedium and make it beautiful and go over it and over it and over it and over it again. And our eyes would be bleary looking at these things, but the machine, given the correct marching orders, can come back with something incredibly creative.
Let me ask you just so back in the day, I remember when I got in the industry, we taught people having good thumbs. And good thumbs meant you could synthesize a controller and make someone understand how to play something vis-a-vis like a Nintendo controller, Sega controller, whatever. But that's then. It's 2020. What are the young people having now, which are like the things that they're able to synthesize, right, and help people understand very well to create play of all kinds?
I try to teach my kids to be agile and adaptable, but I think also be like really in touch with sort of like the core. Like I hear a lot about people talking about like, oh, well, we need to identify like new communities, or like who are the, like the demographics, who are the communities that like we haven't discovered yet. And it's like, no, like everybody plays games. Like we all like. I have a 3-year-old. She invents a new game like every day for the most part, and everybody did this sort of at a core level. And what I want people to sort of like, I think, remember is, and I think that, some of our students, and I think this generation that's sort of coming up like maybe gets, because they've seen the tools change so fast that it's not possible for them to keep up, is that like tools change, methodologies change, all of this stuff will change, but like play is like universal and kind of forever and hasn't changed. And being in touch with that is what I'm looking for. I've hired a lot of students over the years fresh out of school, and that's what I look for.
I got my last question. I see our clock here, which is this, which, once again, back in the day, we should teach authorship. Like I played, Will Wright's games, right? Sid Meier's games. But now there's a lot of talk of service. How are you teaching this new generation of students to be of service to players versus just authoring ideas and experiences? And I ask that to all three of you.
I think this. I think at the end of the day, games are, if you're not having fun and smiling by the end of it, you're not doing yourself any service. And that's the core kind of service is entertainment. And I think even at USC, especially at the cinema department, entertainment is the core fundamental of what we're doing. And that driving force of making people laugh, smile, and so forth is what drives our experiences forward as well.
I'm going to agree 100% with what just was said. Is you can have a lot of these distractions of the technology, but ultimately what is fulfilling is the experience, and what exactly that is so unknowable. It's still very much in the hands of us humans.
And
I just say, make the game you want to play. Like the game that you most want to play, and don't worry about what you think other people want.
Right.
Cool. Well, I believe the
that's
clock says
it.
we're out of time.
Great, we're it.
So thank all of you for making time for us.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
And thank our audience for being with us. We're out.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're done.
Thanks, guys.